Hi, in this video we will be going over section 2.3, which is on linear functions and slope-intercept form, hopefully concepts that you're familiar with from Algebra 1. First thing we're going to talk about is slope. Slope of a non-vertical line is the ratio of the vertical change to the horizontal change. You can figure out slope between 2 points by using the slope formula as listed at the bottom of the screen, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Let's begin practicing with problem 1, finding the slope. First, at the top of your notes packet, let's rewrite the slope formula. So you can see the formula here is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So now let's try the example. We want to find the slope between the 2 points. What I would do first is label the first point x1, y1, and label the second point x2, y2. Now let's plug the points into the formula. So we have the y2 coordinate 4 minus the y1 coordinate 7 over x2 minus x1, which is negative 3. So now let's compute the numerator. 4 minus 7. In the denominator we have a negative 2 minus a negative. So the two negatives turn into positive and we get 1. This can then be simplified to a slope of negative 3. Now let's try B. Go ahead and label your points and then plug them into the formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. In the numerator I get 1 minus 1, which is 0, and in the denominator I get negative 7. 0 divided by anything will always be 0, so here the slope is 0. And when you have a slope of 0, that means you have a horizontal line. It's not rising or falling, it's horizontal straight across. Take a moment and try C on your own. Here, in the numerator, we get 1 minus a negative, which turns positive, so we get 4. And in the denominator, we get 7 minus 7, which is 0. You cannot have 0 in the denominator. This makes the slope undefined. An undefined slope means you can't figure it out. So that represents a vertical line. It goes up and up and up forever, or undefined. Here's a quick summary of what kind of slopes you can get. In the first picture, you see positive slope because it rises from left to right. In the second picture, you see a negative slope. You could have zero slope. This is when 0 is in the numerator, or an undefined slope when you have 0 in the denominator. We're now going to look at linear functions. We can represent linear functions in a linear equation, such as what's written up below. Here, we can see that for a linear function, we have a y-intercept and an x-intercept. One particular way we can write an equation of a line is using slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Let's try problem 2 together. In problem 2, we will be writing linear equations in the slope-intercept form. Copy this equation into your notes. In part A, they give us m, the slope, and then they give us the y-intercept of negative 3. They give us the m, and again the y-intercept represents the b letter. So now let's plug the two numbers in. We leave y alone, plug in the m of 1/5, then plug in your b value of negative 3. So you wouldn't write plus negative 3, you would just write minus 3. In part B, we again want to write the equation of a line, but we're looking at a picture instead of them giving the information of slope and y-intercept. So we want to fill in the m and the b. To fill in the m, we want to count rise over run. So find two nice points on the graph where they cross the marks perfectly. For example, there and maybe here. So now let's start at the left dot and go to the right dot. Instead of rising, I'm actually falling 1, 2, 3 units. So falling, I'm going to represent with a negative. I'm going to calculate how many units to the right, and it's 1 unit. So my slope is negative 3. That's your m value. Your b value is where are we crossing the y-axis. And you can see the line crosses here right at 4. So now that I have my two values, we can write the equation. So you can see our equation is y equals negative 3x plus 4. Let's move on to problem 3. In problem 3, we want to write the equation in slope-intercept form, reminding yourself that the slope slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Notice in slope-intercept form that the y is by itself, so that's what we need to do in problem A. We need to get this y by itself. So first let's move the x term over. Always move the x term away first. That leaves me with negative 4y equals negative 5x plus 16. Now to finish solving for y, we need to get rid of the negative 4 by dividing it. Make sure you divide each term by negative 4. And now let's simplify. Here, the negative 4's cancel. In front of the x, the two negatives cancel. I have 5/4. I'm just going to put x to the side. And the last term, I have 16 divided by negative 4, which is negative 4. Now that I'm in slope-intercept form, I can figure out the slope and the y-intercept. That's picking out the m value, which will be the number in front of the x, and pick out the b value, which is the number without the x. And now I know my slope and y-intercept. Let's look at b. In b, again, we need to move our x term over. This time I will be adding the 3/4 x over. Notice when I add the 3/4 x over, I put it in front of the negative 1. Now I need to get rid of the 1/2. You can divide each term by 1/2 or multiply everything by 2, or 2 over 1, which is the reciprocal of 1/2. So the 2 over 1 cancels the 1 over 2, and here I need to multiply everything by 2 as well. So 2 times 3/4 will be 3/2 x, and 2 times negative 1 will be negative 2. Now I can pick out my m value and my b value. So my slope is 3/2 and my y-intercept is negative 2. In our final problem, we will be graphing a linear equation. A graph is most easily completed if you are in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So what we want to do first is get it in slope-intercept form, and we're going to move the x term over. We're going to move that term over by adding it and putting it in front of the 1. So after getting y by itself, I get 2x plus 1. I can then pick out my slope and my y-intercept. My y-intercept I can write as a coordinate 0, 1. So let's start there. We know the graph will cross at the point 0, 1. And let's plot a dot there. From there, you want to use the slope. Now slope is normally a fraction, so to change 2 to a fraction, just put it over 1. So now let's rise 2 units and then over 1 unit. For a line, all you need is 2 dots, which we have, so then we can sketch our line. And there we have it.